listening to Over the Oxer podcast with Tracy Cole for all things to do with the mind for equestrians. I've been thinking quite a bit about winter and winter well-being, mainly because it's got really quite chilly here at the moment. And last night we had a shed load of snow, so driving was a bit hazardous this morning. Getting to the yard isn't always easy, is it? When you've got the snow and the ice and the fog and everything else. And when you're at the yard and everything's frozen, it can be a bit difficult. And I think being an equestrian and you've got to go out and sort the horses out. It's not like other hobbies where if you're a walker or a runner, it just becomes a bit of an inconvenience. We have that obligation. We've got to sort our horses. And so I was thinking about winter, and also I had a question from Frida in Norway who was asking about riding confidence and does it normally slip in the cold weather in the winter? So it got me thinking about wintertime questions. And I know some of you are in the other hemisphere and you're enjoying summer, so it must seem a bit bizarre and a long, long way off when you're thinking about winter. But some of these questions are important to us whatever the season. So I wanted to start off with that question about whether our confidence dips in the winter. And I think it may do, but it may be more of perception of confidence. And what I'm thinking of is that the horses are a little bit fresher, because I tell you, if I was all snuggled up in my rug and somebody took it off and I was a bit chilly, I probably would be a little bit bouncy as well. So I think there's that to contend with. I think with the light situation as well, and if you haven't got lights around your arena, then it gets that you need to ride and you need to fit it in. And we might feel that we're under a time pressure. And even if you don't feel it, even if you don't recognize an anxiety to do with time, I must be really, really quick because the light is really fading. Got to get my saddle on, got to tack up as fast as I possibly can. There might be some essence of underlying angst to get on before the light truly fades. There may also be, that your horse is a little bit different in the dark or the twilight, or even with arena lights and the new shadows that all of this casts. Or if you're in an outdoor arena like I am, that your horse can spot movement about 400 miles away. And it might just be a leaf, but in the dark, it's not a leaf, it's a tiger. So I think there is definitely a change in our horse's attitude and a change in our attitude in the colder weather that doesn't mean that we lack confidence as such with the same riders. It's simply that we've maybe pressurized ourselves a little bit. I think as well, I don't know about you, but if I'm cold, then I tend to tense my muscles. I don't even realize I'm doing it. I'm doing it now. And, it might be my thighs or it could be my shoulders. And that obviously impacts the horse as well. If that's not normal for you, your horse is going to be thinking, well, what are you doing? Why are you tensing up like this? So it could be a perception that your confidence isn't as high in the winter just because of time constraints, horses. So what do you think? Do you find that your confidence stays about the same? Doesn't matter on the season? Or are there certain highs and lows? Maybe it's a springtime thing for you and the spring grass, or maybe it's getting out and about, or the pressure to even get out and about when the weather does get a bit better. I was asked a few questions by BETA. BETA is the British Equestrian Trade Association, and I did a webinar with them. I think it was sometime earlier in 2023. So the winter, probably January to March or something like that. And we talked about a number of winter issues for equestrians. And these were some of the things that came up. So I think that we need, as riders, to be really aware of our mental well-being in winter, possibly more than summer, because horses are as much a part of our lives as our family and our friends, maybe more so in some cases. And as I mentioned at the start, our horses rely on us for all their needs. And sometimes those needs are a bit more complicated in winter, especially if the horse is a little bit older. Maybe there's a feed issue, maybe there's a lameness issue, arthritis, and so on. And we have to keep ourselves mentally tough to keep going through that. So, for instance, my older horse has a little bit of lameness in the winter, and it is just a touch of arthritis. And I think as well, if the mud gets too deep, sort of wrenching herself out of the mud kind of puts a bit of pressure on her limbs, and that can turn into a lameness as well. So I've just got to stay really stoic. I've just got to make sure that I'm giving her the best feed that I can do, the supplements that I want to give her for joints and so on, and just make sure that she is fairly warmed up in a school before she goes out. All these kind of little things. They're all extras, aren't they? So they're all things to think about. And it puts a pressure on us mentally because we only have so much time. We're now squeezing in extra things. And any time that we feel like that we're really flagging with our horses, especially as winter really bites, then we need to make sure of our own well-being so that we can look after our horses. And that's so important. And I think people do put their horses before themselves, but we need to really, really look after our own physical health as well as our mental and emotional health at this time as well, so that we can kind of bounce like Tigger onto the stable yard. Well, maybe not. And, our horses do form part of our protection in that way. They are our mental well-being many, many times. And it doesn't really matter if you ride or not. Very often just seeing your horse, hearing your horse, seeing the head pop out of the stable because they've just heard your car and they know it's you. That's something really special, isn't it? And I think horses and looking after horses can be the linchpin in terms of our mental health. And, people would give up having a really nice new set of boots or a new coat or whatever it is for themselves. But my goodness, they always find the money for a new rug or new boots or whatever it is for their horse. And I think horses, even though they cost a lot of money, they cost a lot of time, they're often our sanity, aren't they? They're kind of like a well-being package for us. And when you're with your horse, very often, all you're thinking about is your horse. And when you gaze into their eyes, when you've done all your mucking out, you've put all your feeds together, you've done all the hay nets, and it's just about time to either give them a groom or give them a bit of a hug. And that's really special. That there's some kind of connection there. There's something that is, whether it's a dopamine fix or whatever it is, there's something very, very special about it. And the rest of the world goes on hold for a moment and you stop thinking about the world away from horses. You start to think just about your horse. You stop thinking about work problems, and that inner voice that might have been whispering negativity to you all day. Some people will be going through scenarios that happened in the day, and just being with your horse, or maybe even just telling your horse all about it, really, really helps. So it gives us a brilliant mental breather. And it sometimes it puts things into perspective, doesn't it? what's important. And it doesn't matter if you spend your time riding or just caring for them. It's being with them. And even, the time spent thinking about them, I sometimes think, it's really beneficial. I can be at home deciding whether or not the feed that I've got is the best feed that I should be using, or is there some way that I can keep their fitness going, or whatever it is. It locks me out of the real world and just gives me that lovely mental space. So I think horses are really important to our mental well-being. I think what we need to do, though, as I said before, in thinking about our own mental well-being, it's very individual, but noticing things such as stress or overwhelm just popping up a little bit more than normal, being more reactive. It could even be that you snap at people, that you're losing the patience that you usually have. Anything like that may just say, slow down, take an hour off, whatever it is, you need a break. You might also notice in yourself that your eating patterns change. And I know eating patterns are going to change throughout the year. We're probably eating a bit more in winter at the moment, but have your eating patterns changed significantly? Have you stopped eating? Have you started eating all the wrong things? That again could be a kind of protection that your body is trying to carry out. And so maybe again, it's time to just examine your own mental well-being. Maybe your sleep patterns have changed. Have a little think about how deeply you're sleeping. Do you need to get an app or listen to a YouTube relaxation so that you can sleep better? What about sleep hypnosis? Have you noticed yourself getting more emotional? And whether that's just that you burst into tears, or that you feel that you're getting angry, or people can hurt you more than normal. What about being tired all the time? That one's a big one, isn't it? It's TAT, T-A-T-T, tired all the time. And it's a huge one because you often think about it in terms of physical work that you've done, but very often the emotional and mental work that you've done, whether that was productive work or whether that was the wheels spinning round in your mind, it might be that those are overloading you as well. And a shortcut to getting rid of that kind of thing would be to engage with some kind of mindset coach, timeline therapy coach, and just get rid of those emotions that are weighing you down, the burden of them. And so you can feel lighter and you can put more energy into the physicality of having a horse. You might feel like you want to hide away. Now, part of that's natural, isn't it? In winter, because it's dark, it's cold, you probably want to be inside in the evening and so on. But it's being overly reactive to people and wanting to get away from them as quick as possible, more than normal. There might be a feeling that you need to protect yourself, but you're not sure what from. Again, these are all drawing on our mental reserves. These are all pointing towards maybe a little tiny bit of under the radar anxiety, or putting yourself under pressure, or just feeling maybe you're not good enough. These are sometimes compounded in winter just because it's dark. You might be on social media more than ever, and you're looking at all these wonderful photos of people who have no hay in their hair, no mud, clean horses, and they're doing the most wonderful passage, and you're just battling mud and hay and cold and grime and dirt and horses that have got far too much energy. You might have symptoms of seasonal affective disorder. although that is a disorder. So it's not that just because you feel a bit fed up in winter, you don't necessarily have the disorder, but that might be something to investigate. And another thing to think about, and people don't necessarily think about it as a mental drain, but maybe you've got more physical aches and you're getting colds back to back. So it doesn't necessarily mean that there's something wrong. It may mean that you're having to do a lot more physical work up at the yard. But again, it's a bit of self-care. It can mean sometimes that we really have depressed our immune system and our repair systems by just having a level of stress that is not necessarily healthy. It may be, again, one of those things that's not easily apparent. It may be under the radar. So if you notice this in yourself, then the awareness is the first step. It's the first thing to think about and notice, and maybe do a little bit of research. I'm not saying go on to Google, consult Dr. Google or anything like that, but maybe it's time to just look after yourself, take care, take some time out if you can. If you find that you're not as bright as you could be, you may be suffering from burnout. And burnout is when you are mentally, physically, and emotionally just exhausted. You're completely wiped out. Nothing gets you out of it. So going on holiday doesn't get you out of it. Taking a break doesn't get you out of it. And so burnout is quite different. Burnout, you're at that point where you have to do something. You have to take action. And that action usually is some form of inaction. And lastly, what if you notice these things in somebody else? So you're pretty much okay, but you notice somebody else is maybe just not quite as bright as they are usually. Maybe they are feeling a bit snappy, or maybe they've gone very quiet, maybe a bit withdrawn. Then you need to support. You don't have to be their counsellor or anything like that, but sometimes just asking someone, are you okay? Can I do something for you? Can I fill your water buckets? Can I do some hay nets? Anything like that. Starting a conversation about the woes of winter, and just tell them that, you're there if they need you. So it's not that you're demanding that they open up to you, but just offering some form of support. Maybe just putting the kettle on and saying, I'm having a cup of tea. I'll make you one. Do you take 1 sugar or 2? Just something that lets them know that there is somebody in their corner. And if you think that they've got a bigger problem, then there's a fabulous charity that I'm sure you've heard of called Riders' Minds. Riders' Minds have 24/7 helplines for anyone connected with horses. So whether you ride or you don't ride, whether you're an amateur, recreation rider, elite rider, doesn't matter. If you're connected with horses and you have problems, Riders' Minds is a great place to start to just get some additional support. Sometimes it's good to talk to somebody who doesn't actually know you. So I hope your winter's going well. I hope you're smiling at all these sunrises and sunsets that you're seeing. And I hope that your horses are safe and sound too. If you have any questions about winter or what to do, let me know. Or if you have any fabulous winter tips, I'm all ears. That would be super. Well, take care. I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast, and I'll see you again very soon.